Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources, dig deep into the human condition, and really try to surface the mechanics behind our most confusing behaviors.
And today we're tackling a big one, a real paradox.
Yeah, it's that ultimate emotional bait and switch. You've been chasing, you genuinely like someone, you feel this, profound connection.
And then they finally reciprocate. They turn around and say, I like you too, let's do this.
And your immediate, overwhelming impulse is just, get me out of here, run.
It's emotional whiplash.
It is. So why does getting the thing we wanted so badly suddenly feel terrifying? We've been looking at a deep psychological analysis that dissects this exact flight response.
And the central finding is really key, this avoidance. It's not about lacking interest. It's about a self-preservation instinct that is, well, let's just say it's deeply flawed, but incredibly powerful.
So our mission today is to unpack that. We're going to identify the cognitive tripwires, the attachment patterns that make you bolt when your heart is telling you to stay.
And crucially, we're going to explore the tools for overcoming that automatic self-sabotaging impulse.
Okay, let's get into it. The place to start is that immediate internal stress response. Because this feeling, it's not triggered by dislike at all.
No, it's triggered by the convergence of two very specific things: intense liking and intense pressure.
That combination is the ignition switch.
It is. Think about it. When someone you don't care about shows affection, you just brush it off, right?
Yeah, no big deal.
But when the person you desperately want expresses that same affection, your brain immediately processes that signal as a huge demand, a demand for performance.
And that's the perceived pressure, which is,
Okay.
it's almost never actually demanded by the other person.
Exactly. The source we're looking at explains that their interest is unconsciously perceived as this massive emotional investment that's being made in you.
So suddenly there's this feeling of debt. You feel an obligation to immediately pay back this emotional loan with guaranteed interest and perfect performance.
Right. It's an unconscious, instant, high-stakes self-assessment. Your inner voice is basically saying, okay, I see the level of investment they're willing to make.
Okay.
And when I look at my own emotional bank account right now, I just don't have the funds to meet their expectations.
So it's not about them at all. It's about your assessment of your own resources.
Precisely. And that feeling of inadequacy generates this massive internal tension. The only way to relieve it is to create distance.
So the avoidance, or even, ending things prematurely, it's a defense mechanism.
Pure defense. You're not rejecting the person so much as you're protecting yourself from what your brain sees as emotional insolvency. You think you're about to carry a super heavy load that you're just too fragile for.
So the key takeaway here is, well, it's completely counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The impulse to escape isn't proof you don't want the relationship.
It's proof that you value it so highly that you're terrified of failing at it.
You're protecting yourself from a debt you only think you owe.
And that moves us perfectly into the next layer of this, which is the mental justification. Once that emotional panic kicks in, the brain needs a story to make sense of the flight impulse.
This is where the perfect partner thinking comes in.
Yeah, fueled by deep insecurity.
And this isn't just, general nervousness. The research identifies these very specific recurring cognitive patterns. And if you feel this flight response, I bet you've run one of these 3 scripts.
Let's hear them.
Okay, the first is about the outcome. It's, I must guarantee their happiness, otherwise I'm not even worthy to try.
The all or nothing approach. The second one is focused on comparison. It's, my current state is fundamentally not good enough. I can't match their expectations.
And the third one, which is just classic self-sabotage, is predicting the future. Once they get to know the real me, they'll find my flaws, and they will absolutely leave me.
And it feels so real when you're in it.
What's so interesting is how psychology classifies these thoughts. They aren't rational. They're textbook examples of cognitive distortion.
Right. When the stakes are high, especially emotionally high, our brains default to these irrational shortcuts. The patterns you just laid out, they fall squarely into 2 categories. One is catastrophizing.
Just assuming the worst possible disaster will happen.
Without question. And the other is all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. There's no room for gray. If I'm not perfect, then I must be a complete and utter failure.
Can you walk us through how that catastrophizing actually shows up in, a new relationship?
Sure. It's that immediate, totally unwarranted leap to the finish line. So instead of thinking, hey, I really enjoy spending time with them, your mind just jumps ahead.
To what?
2, we had one awkward silence during dinner, which means they must realize I'm boring, which leads to they will eventually dump me, I'll be heartbroken, and I will die alone.
Wow, okay.
So the escape artist just decides to reject the person now to avoid the pain of that imagined rejection later. You quit before the game even starts.
It's like our minds just completely delete the entire process of learning and adjusting and growing with someone. It removes all the elasticity of a real relationship.
Which is the perfect lead-in to the factors that make this feeling of inadequacy even worse. Because now we have to talk about how your internal state and your attachment history collide.
Right. What else is making that relational forecast look so incredibly gloomy?
Well, your internal state matters a whole lot here. The source highlights the role of depressive symptoms. And this doesn't have to be, clinical depression.
Just feeling low.
Exactly. Even low-grade emotional lows can do it. Because when you're feeling low, your brain's ability to imagine your future self is limited. You mistake your current mood, your current energy, for a permanent state.
That makes so much sense. So if I feel tired and low capacity today, my brain just assumes I'll be this tired and this incapable for the entire duration of a relationship.
And that makes any kind of commitment feel impossible. And the consequence is just devastating for intimacy. You overestimate your own shortcomings, how you could never meet their demands, and at the same time, you underestimate the resilience of the relationship itself, that elasticity you mentioned.
You assume relationships are brittle, fragile things that will shatter if you're not perfect.
And if you already have a history of feeling overwhelmed by closeness, that pressure is just multiplied tenfold, which brings us to attachment theory.
How does that play into it?
We see a really heavy correlation with avoidant attachment styles. For these individuals, deep emotional intimacy is fundamentally seen as a threat.
A threat to what?
To their autonomy, to their independence. It requires a vulnerability and an emotional depth that they feel deep down they just can't sustain.
So when a partner expresses serious emotional investment, that commitment isn't seen as a gift. It's like an invasion.
It's an encroachment on their personal space. They register that high degree of investment as an immediate risk, a risk of losing themselves or a risk of being devastated by emotional injury down the line.
And that triggers the defensive retreat.
A powerful and immediate one. And this is the ultimate irony of self-sabotage, isn't it?
Yeah. The withdrawal isn't because they don't have feelings for the person.
It's because the emotional stakes have gotten so high that they can't tolerate the potential for damage. The more important that person becomes, paradoxically, the stronger the impulse to flee. The system is just oversensitized.
It treats the highest reward relationship as the highest possible threat.
Okay, this sounds heavy, but this deep dive is about application. We need to move from just identifying this to the strategies psychology provides.
Right. Since the slight response is entirely an internal mechanism, the solution has to be internal too. It's about changing the programming.
So where do we start?
The first, most foundational strategy is cognitive separation. You have to consciously create distance between the feeling of liking and the mental burden of, I must be perfect.
You have to reject the idea that their love requires your immediate, perfect, sustained performance.
You don't have to pass the relationship final exam on the first day. You don't have to instantly become this ideal version of yourself you think they deserve.
Exactly. The goal is to shift your mindset. Stop viewing the relationship as a binding contract or a one-time test of your worthiness.
And see it as what?
As an exploration process.
Yeah.
You're both just discovering what fits. Imperfection is the default, expected state. Their interest is just an invitation to explore. It's not a certificate of your flawless qualifications.
It really does lighten the load.
Okay.
So for people who struggle with that, they'll find my flaws and leave pattern. What's a practical step?
The research offers a great one. Gradual exposure of the true self.
Okay, so you don't just dump all your insecurities on the first date.
Please don't. That would
Well-
just induce panic. No, it's about calculated risk-taking. Start small. Identify one tiny insecurity that, if you revealed it, you feel like you could handle it if they reacted badly.
Like admitting you're terrible at cooking or something.
Perfect. Or showing a small vulnerability about a minor stressor at work. And then, and this is the part people miss, you pause.
You pause and observe their reaction.
You observe. You are gathering empirical data to actively fight back against your catastrophic prediction. If they react with acceptance or patience or even humor,
You've just gathered concrete evidence that the voice in your head screaming disaster is just wrong.
and you pair that behavioral strategy with an internal one, the technique of self-awareness and emotional naming. This is about metacognition.
Thinking about your thinking.
Exactly. When that heart-pounding, gut-clenching impulse to run shows up, you have to pause and actually label the specific fear that's driving it.
So instead of just, I feel panic, I have to leave,
Yeah.
you define it.
You define it. You say to yourself, I am nervous right now, not because I dislike them, but because I'm worried I can't adequately respond to their feelings.
Or, I'm feeling pressure because I think I need to be better than I am.
Right, and that simple act of naming, of putting language to the emotional chaos, is so critical. It disengages the panicked reactive part of your brain and engages the rational decision-making part.
It gives you that sliver of space.
That's all you need. That space to realize the catastrophic story your mind is telling you is just that, a story, based on flawed assumptions.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've gone from the pressure to the distortion to the strategy. The key thing is that this avoidance behavior, it is not a sign of incompatibility.
No, it's a complex, overactive defense system. It's designed to protect you from future pain by sabotaging your current potential for happiness.
The final knowledge gain here is being able to recognize the rationality of that initial impulse. It's a valid protective move.
But it's based on flawed data, outdated data about your own capacity and about a relationship's flexibility. You have to learn to separate the real, risk-like, actual toxic behavior in a partner from the cognitive exaggeration.
The disaster movie your anxious mind keeps playing on a loop.
That's the one.
That separation is everything. The ultimate goal here is to increase your ability to just stay present, to allow for that trial and error space, and to gradually, safely expose your authentic, imperfect self.
Research consistently shows that gradual exposure is far more beneficial for building stable, fulfilling intimacy than a premature exit based on a distorted, pessimistic forecast. You have to give the relationship a chance to adapt to the reality of who you are.
Instead of demanding that you instantly become the flawless person you imagine they expect.
Exactly.
Indeed. So, if that impulse to run is strongest toward the person you like the most, maybe consider this provocative closing thought. What essential part of your future self are you protecting by refusing to risk the possibility of current happiness?
A lot to think about there.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.